I'm Iris, 34 years old, and I woke up to the scorching desert sun burning my face, my mouth dry as sandpaper. The spot where my family's RV had been parked was empty, just tire tracks in the dust. My phone was dead, I had no water, and the temperature gauge at the gas station read 115 degrees. That's when I found the note tucked under a rock where our vehicle had been. My sister Jade's handwriting made my blood run cold. Let's see if the golden child can survive on her own. This wasn't a prank. This was revenge. Before we dive into how my own family tried to destroy me, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you've ever dealt with toxic family members, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life survival stories. Trust me, what happens next will shock you. The invitation had arrived 3 months ago, and I should have known something was wrong from the moment I saw it. My sister Jade, 36 years old, and always the family organizer, had sent out elaborate invitations for what she called a healing family reunion. We hadn't all been together in 3 years, not since Grandma Rose's funeral, and Jade claimed it was time to mend fences and move forward as a family. My parents, Frank and Pearl, 62 and 59 respectively, had called me repeatedly to ensure I'd attend. "Family is everything, Iris," my mother had said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt forced. "We're not getting any younger, and it's time we all came together." My younger brother Brett, 31, was flying in from Denver with his wife Tara, who was 29 and had never quite warmed up to me. Even my cousin Haley, 38, was bringing her teenage twins all the way from Portland. What they didn't mention in their enthusiastic planning was that they were all secretly seething about Grandma Rose's will. 2 months after her death, the lawyer had revealed that she'd left her entire Phoenix property valued at $2.8 million solely to me. The house, the investments, the vintage jewelry collection, everything went to me. My family got nothing except for a few $1,000s each and some old photographs. I understood their initial shock and hurt. But what I didn't understand was the depth of their resentment until much later. Jade had lost her boutique marketing business during the pandemic and was drowning in debt. She'd been counting on that inheritance to save her from bankruptcy. Brett's restaurant venture in Denver had failed spectacularly, leaving him $400,000 in debt to some very unforgiving lenders. He'd already borrowed against everything he owned, betting on Grandma's money to bail him out. My parents weren't doing much better. Dad's heart surgery last year had left them with crushing medical debt despite their insurance, and Mom's diabetes medication was costing them $1,500 a month. They'd refinanced their house twice, certain that Grandma Rose would leave them enough to finally retire comfortably. The reunion trip started innocuously enough. We met at a rental property in Las Vegas, all smiles and hugs and promises to put the past behind us. For 2 days, we played happy family, taking group photos at tourist spots, sharing meals where everyone carefully avoided mentioning money or inheritance. Brett made jokes, Jade organized group activities, and my parents beamed at having all their children together again. On the morning of day 3, we set out in the massive RV Jade had rented, heading towards the Grand Canyon. The atmosphere was almost festive, with Haley's twins playing cards in the back, and Tara actually making conversation with me about her new yoga studio plans. When we stopped at that isolated gas station on the edge of the Mojave Desert, I thought nothing of it. Just another bathroom break on a long road trip. The gas station was one of those lonely outposts you find in the desert, miles from anywhere, with a single attendant and prices that made you wince. I remember the heat hit me like a physical force when I stepped out of the air-conditioned RV. "5 minutes, everyone," Jade had called out cheerfully. I headed to the restroom, taking my time to splash cold water on my face and reapply sunscreen. When I came back out squinting in the blazing sun, the parking lot was empty. At first I thought they'd moved the RV to the gas pumps on the other side. But as I walked around the small building, my confusion turned to alarm. They were gone. Completely gone. That's when I spotted the white piece of paper weighted down with a rock right where the RV had been parked. My hand shook as I unfolded the note, Jade's familiar purple pen, making my stomach turn. "Let's see if the golden child can survive on her own. You always thought you were better than us, smarter than us, more deserving." Grandma gave you everything because you manipulated her. Now let's see how independent you really are without her money protecting you. Don't bother calling for help. We've made sure no one will believe you." The temperature was climbing past 115 degrees, and I could already feel the sweat pooling at the base of my neck. My phone was completely dead, which seemed impossible since I'd charged it in the RV that morning. Later, I'd learned that Brett had swapped my charging cable for a broken one 2 days earlier. Every detail had been planned. I stumbled back into the gas station, my legs feeling weak. The attendant, a weathered man in his 60s wearing a name tag that read, Dale, barely looked up from his magazine. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cracking. "My family left me here. I need to use your phone." Dale's expression didn't change. He slowly turned a page in his magazine. "No phone for customers," he said flatly. "Please, this is an emergency. They abandoned me here." That's when he finally looked up and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. Recognition. He knew exactly who I was and what had happened. Like I said, no phone. "I'll pay you," I said desperately. "I have cash, $100 just to make one call." Dale leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Your sister already paid me $500 to make sure you don't cause any trouble. Said you're having one of your episodes. Told me you might make up wild stories about being abandoned." My mouth went dry. "What else did she tell you?" "That someone would be along to pick you up soon enough. Said you needed to learn a lesson about gratitude." He smirked. Though between you and me, they didn't seem too concerned about when that might be. "Please," I begged. "This is kidnapping. It's illegal. You could get in serious trouble." Dale shrugged. "Way I see it, family business ain't my business. But I'll tell you what. For $1,000 cash, I might remember I got a phone in the back office. I had $1,200 in my wallet, emergency cash I always carried on trips." With shaking hands, I counted out 10 $100 bills. Dale pocketed the money and disappeared into a back room. For a moment, I thought he'd simply robbed me, but then he returned with an ancient flip phone. "5 minutes," he said. "And I want to see that you're calling family, not cops." My fingers fumbled with the unfamiliar keypad as I tried to remember phone numbers. My attorney first, but the call went straight to voicemail. My bank was next, and that's when I discovered the real scope of their plan. "I'm sorry, Ms. Patterson," the bank representative said after I'd verified my identity. "But there's a hold on all your accounts. Your power of attorney, Ms. Jade Patterson, called this morning to report suspicious activity. She said you've been showing signs of mental instability and might try to drain the accounts." "She's not my power of attorney," I protested. "I have the documentation right here, ma'am. Signed and notarized yesterday." My hands went cold despite the desert heat. They'd forged documents. This wasn't just about leaving me in the desert. This was about taking everything. Dale was watching me closely, so I couldn't call the police. Instead, I tried my friend Maria in Los Angeles, praying she'd answer an unknown number. When her warm voice came through, I nearly sobbed with relief. "Maria, it's Iris. I need help. I'm stranded at a gas station near Barstow. My family left me here and they're trying to steal my inheritance. Please, can you wire me money for a bus ticket?" "Iris, slow down, honey. What's happening?" Dale made a cutting motion across his throat. Time was up. "I'll explain later. Please just send money to the Desert Stop gas station near Barstow. I'll find a way to call you back." I hung up and handed the phone back to Dale. That's when he surprised me. Maybe it was guilt over taking my money, or maybe he just enjoyed drama, but he motioned me over to a small security monitor behind the counter. "Thought you might want to see this," he said, rewinding the footage. "Your family ain't as smart as they think." On the grainy screen, I watched my family in the parking lot 20 minutes earlier. They were all there, standing around the RV, and their voices carried clearly to the security camera's microphone. "You sure about this?" Brett was saying. "What if something happens to her?" Jade's laugh was cold. "Nothing's going to happen. Dale knows the plan. In a few hours, Mitchell's guys will pick her up and take her to the cabin. By tonight, she'll be so scared she'll sign anything we put in front of her." "I still say we should have just contested the will legally," Tara interjected. With what lawyer? Jade snapped. With what money? This is the only way. Mom, tell them. My mother, the woman who'd sung me lullabies and kissed my scraped knees, looked directly at the camera without knowing it. Iris made her choice when she poisoned Mother against us. She's stolen our futures. It's only fair we take it back. Besides, my father added, checking his watch, Dr. Morrison is ready to sign the competency evaluation. By tomorrow, we'll have legal conservatorship and this whole mess will be over. They'd paid off a doctor. They'd forged legal documents. They'd planned every detail of my kidnapping and were framing it as concern for my mental health. This wasn't a cruel prank that had gone too far. This was a calculated crime. Dale fast-forwarded to show them driving away, all of them laughing. Jade had rolled down her window to toss the note out, making sure it would land exactly where I'd find it. The level of cruelty, the premeditation, it took my breath away. Still got that footage? I asked Dale quietly. He gave me a long look. Might do. Might not. Depends on who's asking and how much they're paying. I pulled out my last $200. This is all I have left. Dale pocketed the bills and burned the security footage onto a DVD that looked like it was from 2005. Bus comes by in an hour, he said. Heads to Barstow. If I were you, I'd be on it. Those guys your sister mentioned, Mitchell's crew, they ain't the kind of people you want to meet in a cabin in the desert. I sat outside on a rusted bench, the metal burning through my jeans, and waited for that bus while the sun climbed higher. Every car that passed made my heart race. Were they coming back? Were Mitchell's people already on their way? An old freight truck rumbled into the station and the driver, a massive man with kind eyes and arms covered in military tattoos, climbed out to fuel up. He noticed me sitting there, obviously out of place in my designer sandals and sundress. You okay, miss? He asked. I made a split-second decision. My family abandoned me here as some kind of sick joke. I'll give you $1,000 when we reach Barstow if you'll let me ride with you. I know how that sounds, but I have the cash in my account. I just need to get somewhere safe where I can access it. The driver, who introduced himself as Roy, studied me for a long moment. Maybe he saw the genuine fear in my eyes, or maybe he just needed the money. Climb in, he said finally, and tell me the real story on the way. As Roy's truck rumbled down the desert highway, I borrowed his phone to check my social media. What I found made my stomach turn. Jade had already posted on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There I was in a photo from yesterday, smiling at dinner with a caption that read, "Please pray for our family." Iris had another episode this morning and wandered away from our campsite. She's been struggling with paranoid delusions since inheriting money from Grandma. If anyone sees her, please approach with caution as she may be confused and aggressive. We just want our sister back safe. The comments were pouring in. Old high school classmates expressing shock. Distant relatives offering prayers. Everyone buying into the narrative that I was mentally unstable. Brett had shared the post adding his own plea. She's done this before. Last time we found her, she accused us all of trying to poison her. The money has really affected her mental health. Please help us find her before she hurts herself or someone else. They'd tagged me in everything, ensuring my professional contacts would see it too. My inbox was already filling with concerned messages from colleagues and clients. My carefully built reputation was being destroyed in real time, and I was trapped in a truck with a stranger wearing yesterday's clothes, looking exactly like the unstable person they were painting me to be. That's messed up, Roy said after I explained everything. He'd been in the military, done 3 tours in Afghanistan, and he recognized a coordinated attack when he saw one. You need to get ahead of this fast. My ex-wife tried something similar during our custody battle. Once people believe you're crazy, everything you say sounds like paranoia. He was right. I used his phone to call Maria back, and this time I was able to explain everything. She was horrified but not entirely surprised. Your sister always gave me bad vibes, she said. Remember last Christmas when she, jokingly, asked if you'd written a will, yet, listen, I'm coming to get you. My daughter Selena just passed the bar exam. She'll know what to do. We arranged to meet at a diner in Barstow called Rosie's. Roy refused the $1,000 I offered, saying he'd been where I was, and knew how much I'd need every penny. "Just promise me you'll fight back," he said. "People like your family, they count on their victims being too shocked or too nice to really go after them. Don't be nice." Rosie's diner was exactly what you'd expect from a highway stop in the high desert. Cracked vinyl booths, coffee that could strip paint, and a clientele that minded their own business. I ordered coffee with shaking hands and waited, watching every car that pulled into the parking lot. That's when I saw them on the TV mounted in the corner. My family standing in front of a sheriff's station, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The local news was eating it up. "The family says Iris Patterson has a history of mental health issues that worsened after inheriting a significant sum from her grandmother," the reporter said. "They're asking anyone with information to come forward immediately." Jade looked perfectly distraught in her camera-ready makeup. "We just want her to get the help she needs," she said, her voice breaking. "She's not well, and we're terrified of what might happen if she doesn't get her medication." Medication I'd never taken for conditions I didn't have. The lies came so easily to her. A commotion in the parking lot made me look up. 2 men had pulled up in a black SUV and were showing my photo to people pumping gas. Even from inside, I could see they weren't cops. Everything about them screamed hired muscle, from their too tight t-shirts to the way they kept their hands near their waistbands. I slid out of the booth and headed for the kitchen, pushing through the swinging doors before anyone could stop me. A startled cook looked up from the grill. "Bathroom," I said desperately. He pointed to a door marked "Employees Only." I locked myself in and tried to think. They'd found me fast. Too fast. Were they tracking my credit cards? Of course they were. Jade had probably been monitoring them since they left me in the desert. A knock on the door made me jump. "Iris." It was a woman's voice. "Iris Patterson." "My mom sent me. I'm Selena." I cracked the door open. A young woman in a sharp business suit stood there, Maria's eyes in a younger face. "Those men are asking about you," she said quietly. "Mom's creating a distraction. We need to go out the back, now." We slipped out through the kitchen's rear exit, where Maria was waiting in a sensible Honda Civic. As we pulled away, I saw the 2 men through the diner windows showing my photo to the terrified-looking waitress. "They'll check the security cameras," I said. "Let them," Selena replied. "By the time they get the footage, we'll be long gone. Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe and start documenting everything. Your family's made one big mistake. They've gone too public too fast. Every lie they tell is evidence we can use against them." Maria drove while Selena pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Tell me everything from the beginning," she said. "Every detail, every conversation you can remember. And that security footage Dale gave you. That's gold. We're going to bury them with their own words." As we headed toward Los Angeles, my phone suddenly came back to life. Roy must have found a charger that worked and plugged it in before I got out of his truck. The screen lit up with dozens of missed calls and hundreds of text messages. Most were from concerned friends buying into my family's lies, but one stood out. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "You should have just signed the papers, Iris. Now we do this the hard way. You have 24 hours to come back and make this right, or things get much worse. And if you're thinking about going to the police, remember that we have Dr. Morrison's evaluation. Who do you think they'll believe, the concerned family or the woman who's been officially diagnosed with paranoid delusions?" Clock's ticking. I showed the message to Selena. Her eyes lit up. "They just threatened you in writing," she said. "These people aren't nearly as smart as they think they are. Save everything. Every text, every voicemail, every social media post. They're building our case for us." "What case?" I asked. "They're right. Who's going to believe me? They have a doctor saying I'm delusional." "A doctor who's never actually examined you," Selena pointed out. "That's fraud, malpractice, and conspiracy. Plus, we have that security footage of them planning a kidnapping. Trust me, by the time we're done, the only ones who'll need psychological evaluations are them." But even as she spoke confidently, I could see the worry in Maria's eyes through the rearview mirror. My family had money, they didn't have desperation that made them dangerous, and a head start on controlling the narrative. We were playing catch-up, and they were already moving on to whatever phase 2 was supposed to be. As if reading my thoughts, another text came through. This time, it was a photo. My cousin Haley's twin daughters sitting in what looked like the RV, their faces tear-streaked. The caption read, "Amazing how much teenage girls look like their Aunt Iris, isn't it? Would be a shame if something happened and witnesses saw Iris doing something unfortunate. Stop running and come home." They were threatening to frame me using my teenage cousins. The depravity of it, the willingness to traumatize children for money, told me everything I needed to know. My family wasn't just trying to steal from me. They were willing to destroy anyone and anything to get what they wanted. Change of plans, Selena said grimly after seeing the photo. We're not going to LA. I know someone in San Diego, a former FBI agent who specializes in family fraud cases. If they want to play dirty, we need someone who knows how to play dirtier. The safe house in San Diego was nothing like what I'd expected. Instead of some grim hideout, Selena's contact lived in a beautiful Spanish-style home in La Jolla, with ocean views and a garden full of succulents. Nathan Torres answered the door wearing board shorts and a faded Marine Corps t-shirt, looking more like a surfer than a former federal agent. "Selena's told me the basics," he said, leading us to a home office that looked like a command center. Multiple monitors, filing cabinets, and walls covered in whiteboards. "Family fraud cases are my specialty now. Amazing how much ugliness comes out when money's involved. Show me what you've got." For the next 3 hours, I laid out everything. The inheritance, the desert abandonment, the social media campaign, the threats. Nathan took notes, occasionally asking sharp questions that showed he was already thinking 5 steps ahead. When I showed him the security footage from Dale, his eyes sharpened. "This is good," he said. "But we need more. Your family's created a paper trail, but so far it's all their narrative. We need to flip the script." He turned to one of his computers and started typing. "First thing, let's see what digital footprints they've left." What he found in the next hour changed everything. Jade's email account was linked to an old blog she'd forgotten about, and Nathan was able to access cached versions of deleted posts. 6 months ago, right after the will was read, she'd written a furious screed about golden child Iris and how she was going to get what was coming to her. She'd deleted it within hours, but the internet never forgets. Brett's digital trail was even more damning. He'd been researching conservatorships and power of attorney laws for months. His browser history showed searches for how to prove someone is mentally incompetent and can you force someone to sign legal documents. He'd even joined online forums for people trying to gain control of relatives' finances, posting under a username that was laughably easy to trace back to him. "Your brother's not the brightest bulb," Nathan observed. "Look at this post from 3 weeks ago." I read Brett's forum post with growing nausea. "My sister inherited millions that should have been split with the family. She's always been unstable but refuses to get help. If we could get conservatorship, we could make sure the money is managed properly and she gets the treatment she needs." Anyone have experience with getting someone declared incompetent in California? The responses were split between people calling him out for obvious fraud and others sharing their own schemes. Brett had thanked someone for recommending Dr. Morrison, calling him exactly the kind of understanding professional we need. But it was my parents' financial records that really painted the picture. Nathan had ways of finding information that I didn't ask about too closely. They'd remortgaged their house 3 times in the past 18 months, each time claiming it was for medical expenses. But the money had gone to Brett's failing restaurant and Jade's boutique marketing firm. They'd been hemorrhaging cash long before Grandma Rose died, betting everything on an inheritance they'd already spent in their minds. "Here's where it gets really interesting," Nathan said, pulling up another screen. "Your cousin Haley, the one with the twins, she's not just along for the ride. She's been corresponding with a production company about selling the story of a family intervention gone wrong. Look at this email from 2 weeks ago. I read Haley's pitch to the producers. Wealthy heiress has mental breakdown, family forced to take drastic action. Hidden cameras capture every moment of the intervention and her recovery journey. Think intervention meets succession." We've already got the perfect subject, my cousin who inherited millions and lost touch with reality. My family's planning something big and I'll have exclusive footage. She's planning to film it all and sell it, I said, feeling sick. They're going to kidnap me, force me to sign papers, and she's going to make it into reality TV. Not just planning, Nathan corrected. She's already been paid, $25,000 advance against future earnings. She's got hidden cameras in that RV, and probably wherever this cabin is they keep mentioning. Selena had been pacing the room, her legal mind working. This is conspiracy, fraud, attempted kidnapping, extortion, and about 10 other felonies. But we need to be careful how we play it. If we go to the police now, it's still their word against yours, and they've done a good job poisoning the well. So what do we do? I asked. Nathan smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We give them what they want. You're going to contact them, agree to meet, and let them think they've won. Meanwhile, we'll be recording everything. California's a two-party consent state for recordings, but not when you're documenting crimes against yourself. Every threat they make, every lie they tell, we'll have it all. You want me to walk into their trap? No, Nathan said. I want them to walk into ours. But first we need to neutralize their biggest weapon, this Dr. Morrison character. Lucky for us, I still have friends in interesting places. He made a phone call, speaking rapidly in Spanish before switching to English. Yeah, the Morrison Clinic in Phoenix. The one with all the Medicare fraud allegations. I thought that name sounded familiar. He listened for a moment, then grinned. Perfect. Send me everything. Within an hour, Nathan had a file on Dr. Harrison Morrison that would make anyone think twice about trusting his medical opinion. 3 malpractice suits, 2 investigations for insurance fraud, and a suspended license in Nevada that he'd somehow forgotten to mention when he applied for his Arizona license. He was exactly the kind of desperate, unethical doctor who would sign a false competency evaluation for the right price. Now we're getting somewhere, Nathan said. But we need to move fast. Your family's getting nervous. Look at this. He'd been monitoring their social media in real time. The concerned family narrative was starting to crack. People were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. Why hadn't they filed a proper missing person report? Why were they so focused on Iris's mental health instead of her safety? Why did they seem more interested in talking to lawyers than search and rescue teams? Jade had made another post trying to shore up the story. For those asking why we haven't involved the authorities yet, we're trying to protect Iris's privacy and reputation. Mental health stigma is real, and we don't want her to face judgment when she's found. We're handling this as a family. But the comments were turning skeptical. An old college friend of mine had posted, "This doesn't sound like the Iris I know. She's the most level-headed person I've ever met. What's really going on here?" My family was starting to panic, and panicked people make mistakes. The 2 men from the diner, Vance and Troy, according to Nathan's sources, had been spotted at several motels in Barstow, flashing my photo and a wad of cash. They'd roughed up a desk clerk who wouldn't let them see the guest registry. Someone had called the real police, and now there was an actual bolo out for 2 men matching their description. Time to make contact, Nathan decided. But we do it on our terms. Selena, I need you to set up a meeting with a judge you trust. Someone who can issue an emergency protective order if needed. Maria, can you get us a safe place for the meeting? Somewhere public but controllable. Maria nodded. My brother Diego owns a restaurant in Riverside. Big place, lots of exits, and he's got security cameras everywhere. Plus, half his staff are veterans. If things go sideways, we'll have backup. I sent the text from a burner phone Nathan provided. This has gone too far. I'll meet you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Just family, no one else. Send me the location and I'll be there. The response came within minutes from Jade. Thank God you're coming to your senses. We'll meet you at the Riverside Plaza Hotel. Come alone. We just want to help you, Iris. This is all for your own good. Nathan laughed when he saw it. The Riverside Plaza. That place has been closed for renovations for 2 months. They want to get you somewhere isolated. He typed rapidly on his laptop. Interesting. Your family made a reservation at a cabin resort about 10 miles from there. Paid cash, but they used Brett's rewards number for the points. Like I said, not the brightest bulbs. We crafted my response carefully. Not happening. Too isolated. Rosario's restaurant on Main Street, 3 p.m. Public place. If you really just want to talk, that shouldn't be a problem. The argument went back and forth for hours. They pushed for privacy. I insisted on public. Finally, they agreed, but with conditions. I had to come alone. No lawyers, no recordings. Just a family discussion about my future. They'll bring muscle anyway, Nathan predicted. Probably try to force you into a car once you're there, but that's what we're counting on. Every crime they commit in public is another nail in their coffin. That night, I couldn't sleep. These were the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The ones who'd shared Christmas mornings and birthday parties, who'd been there for every milestone of my life. Now they were treating me like a mark in a con game, willing to destroy me for money I'd never asked for. Maria sat with me on the balcony, the ocean breeze carrying the salt and seaweed smell of low tide. "You know my family disowned me when I divorced my ex-husband," she said quietly. "Said I was bringing shame on them. It took me years to realize that blood doesn't make family. Choice does. The people who choose to stand by you, support you, protect you, those are your real family." "But it still hurts," I said. "Of course it does. Betrayal always hurts worse when it comes from people who are supposed to love you. But tomorrow, you get to choose too. You get to choose to stop being their victim and start being their consequence." Rosario's restaurant was bustling with the late lunch crowd when I arrived at 2:45. Diego Maria's brother had positioned his staff strategically. The hostess who greeted me was actually an off-duty cop friend of his. The busboy clearing tables by the entrance was a former Navy SEAL. Every server had been briefed on the situation and given photos of my family members. Nathan was already there, sitting at a corner table with a clear view of the entire restaurant, wearing glasses and a baseball cap that changed his appearance just enough. Selena was at the bar looking like any other young professional grabbing a late lunch. They'd both be recording everything from different angles. I chose a table in the center of the restaurant, visible from all sides. No corners to be backed into, no isolated spaces where they could pressure me without witnesses. I ordered water with hands that barely shook and waited. They arrived 15 minutes late, a power play that might have worked if I hadn't been expecting it. Jade led the group, wearing a conservative dress that screamed concerned sister, rather than her usual designer style. My parents flanked her, my mother clutching my father's arm as if she could barely stand. Brett brought up the rear, and I noticed the bulge under his jacket that suggested he'd come armed. What I hadn't expected was the entourage. Dr. Morrison himself was there, a thin man with nervous eyes who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Behind him was a woman in a severe suit, carrying a briefcase, obviously their lawyer. And bringing up the rear were Vance and Troy, the muscle from the diner, trying unsuccessfully to look casual in ill-fitting blazers. "Iris," Jade said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Thank God you're safe. We've been so worried." She moved in for a hug that I sidestepped, causing her to stumble slightly. "Sit down," I said calmly. "All of you. Let's discuss this like adults." They arranged themselves around the table with Vance and Troy hovering nearby like badly dressed gargoyles. Dr. Morrison kept glancing at the exits, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "You look well," my mother said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Have you been taking your medication?" "What medication would that be, Mom? The ones for the conditions I don't have." "Denial is a symptom." Dr. Morrison interjected, his voice reedy and unconvincing. "I've seen it many times in cases like yours." "Cases like mine?" "When exactly did you examine me, doctor? Because I don't recall ever being your patient." He flushed but plowed ahead. "Your family provided extensive documentation of your history. My family provided you with lies and a check. How much did they pay you?" $5,010. "What's the going rate for medical fraud these days?" Brett leaned forward aggressively. "You need help, Iris. You're sick. Look at what you're doing, making wild accusations, running away from people who love you. People who love me don't abandon me in the desert with a note saying, 'Let's see if the golden child can survive on her own.'" The silence at the table was deafening. Jade recovered first. "You're confused. That never happened. You wandered off during one of your episodes. I pulled out my phone and played the security footage audio Dale's camera, having captured their conversation perfectly. Their voices filled the space between us. By tonight, she'll be so scared she'll sign anything we put in front of her. Nearby diners were starting to stare. Jade's carefully constructed mask slipped for just a moment, raw fury flashing across her face before she regained control. That's been edited. Taken out of context. Really, should we play the whole thing? The part where you talk about hiring Mitchell's guys to take me to a cabin, or where Mom says I poisoned Grandma against you all? The lawyer, who'd been silent until now, cleared her throat. Ms. Patterson, I think we can all agree that this public setting isn't conducive to a productive family discussion. We have documents that need to be reviewed. You mean the fraudulent conservatorship papers, the ones based on an evaluation by a doctor who's never met me? I kept my voice steady, clear-carrying just enough for nearby tables to hear every word. Or maybe the power of attorney forms that were forged with my signature. No one forged anything, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. You signed those papers months ago. You just don't remember because of your condition. My condition. Right. Tell me, Dad, what medication am I supposedly on? What's my diagnosis? When was I hospitalized? Where are my treatment records? Surely if I'm as sick as you claim, there'd be some evidence beyond the word of a doctor who lost his license in Nevada for insurance fraud. Dr. Morrison went white. He started to stand, but Troy's meaty hand on his shoulder pushed him back down. The intimidation was blatant now, happening in full view of dozens of witnesses. That's when Haley arrived late, and breathless, her twins nowhere to be seen. What was visible was the small camera badly concealed in her designer purse, the lens poking out between the clasps. So sorry I'm late, she gushed. Traffic was horrible. Iris, honey, you look so tired. Have you been sleeping better than I would be if I'd been kidnapped and taken to a cabin in the desert? Tell me, Haley, how much did that production company pay you for exclusive footage of my intervention? She froze mid-sit, her face cycling through emotions like a slot machine. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I have copies of your emails to Breakthrough Productions. $25,000 advance against future earnings for documentary footage of a wealthy heiress mental breakdown. Were you planning to film them forcing me to sign the papers? Or were you hoping for something more dramatic? The occupants of nearby tables weren't even pretending not to watch now. Several had their phones out recording the unfolding drama. Jade noticed and her voice went shrill. Put your phones away. This is a private family matter. My sister is very ill and you're not helping by encouraging her delusions. The only delusion here, I said, standing up slowly, is that you thought you could steal from me and get away with it. You want to know why Grandma Rose left everything to me? Sit down, Jade. All of you sit down and I'll tell you exactly why. They sat probably because Vance and Troy were attracting attention from Diego's security-minded staff who were slowly closing in. Grandma Rose knew exactly who you all were. I continued. She told me before she died. Jade, she knew about the family jewelry you stole and pawned when you were 22. You told everyone it was lost in a break-in, but she found the pawn shop receipts. Jade's face flushed. That's not. I was young and stupid. Brett, she knew about you stealing from her purse every time you visited. 20 here, 50 there. You thought she didn't notice because she was old, but she kept track of every penny. She has a notebook documenting $3,000 over 5 years. Mom, Dad, she knew you tried to have her declared incompetent 2 years ago. Did you think she wouldn't find out when her doctor told her about your concerns about her mental state? The only reason she didn't cut you off completely was because she hoped you'd change. My mother was crying now, but I couldn't tell if the tears were genuine or another performance. We were worried about her. She was living alone in that big house. She was sharp as a tack until the day she died, and you know it. You just wanted control of her money. All of you have always seen me as the enemy because I actually cared about her as a person, not a piggy bank. I visited because I loved her, not because I was angling for an inheritance. So noble, Brett sneered. So perfect. Saint Iris who never did anything wrong. I never said I was perfect, but I never stole from her. Never lied to her. Never tried to have her locked away for my own gain. And I sure as hell never plotted to kidnap and terrorize my own sibling for money. The lawyer was packing up her briefcase, clearly recognizing a sinking ship. Dr. Morrison was edging toward the exit, but Troy's bulk blocked his path. The whole scene was devolving into barely controlled chaos. That's when Nathan made his move. He stood up from his corner table, badge in hand. "Federal Agent Nathan Torres, Financial Crimes Division," he announced loudly. "Nobody move. We've got some questions about conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and attempted kidnapping." The badge was real, even if Nathan was retired. The effect was immediate. Dr. Morrison bolted for the door but ran straight into Diego's bouncer. Vance and Troy reached for weapons but found themselves surrounded by veterans who'd been waiting for this moment. The lawyer threw up her hands, immediately disclaiming any knowledge of criminal activity. "And my family?" They turned on each other like rabid dogs. "This was all Jade's idea," Brett shouted. "I told her it would never work." "You're the one who found Morrison," Jade shot back. "You said he'd do anything for money." "Mom and Dad agreed to everything," Brett continued desperately. "They're the ones who filed the conservatorship papers." My father stood up so fast his chair fell over. "We were trying to protect our daughter. You two promised us no one would get hurt. Protect me." I laughed bitterly. "You were going to have me kidnapped and forced to sign over my inheritance. How is that protection?" The police arrived, then real ones this time, called by Nathan's actual former colleague. As they sorted through the chaos, taking statements and reviewing the evidence we'd compiled, Haley tried one last desperate play. "Iris, please," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I have kids. The twins need their mother. I was just trying to provide for them. By selling footage of my kidnapping, by helping them psychologically torture me, your kids deserve better than a mother who'd do that for money." As the handcuffs came out, as my family was led away one by one, I felt empty. Not satisfied, not vindicated, just hollow. The money that had torn us apart sat in accounts I hadn't even wanted, a gift from a grandmother who'd seen this coming and tried to protect me the only way she knew how. The legal proceedings that followed were a masterclass in how quickly family loyalty evaporates when prison time is on the table. Within hours of their arrests, each family member had hired separate lawyers and begun crafting their own narratives, each version painting themselves as the reluctant participant led astray by the others. Jade's lawyer claimed she was a desperate woman driven to extremes by financial pressure and manipulation from her younger brother. Brett's attorney painted him as someone struggling with gambling addiction who'd been exploited by his older sister's criminal plan. My parents maintained they were elderly victims, confused and coerced by their adult children. But the evidence was overwhelming. The security footage from Dale the Digital Trail, Nathan had uncovered the forged documents with their fingerprints, Dr. Morrison's confession in exchange for a plea deal. It all painted a clear picture of a coordinated conspiracy that had been months in the making. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Haley's production company, facing potential criminal charges for their involvement, turned over all their correspondence with her. The emails went back 8 months long before Grandma Rose had died. Haley had pitched them the idea of documenting a family intervention for inheritance addiction, essentially planning to create drama where none existed. "If we have to stage some confrontations to make it more dramatic, that's just good television," one of her emails read. "My cousin Iris is perfect, pretty successful, and about to inherit millions. Audiences love to see people like that taken down a peg." The prosecutors had field days with each defendant. Jade broke down during questioning when confronted with evidence that she'd researched: how to induce temporary psychosis and drugs that mimic mental illness. She'd planned to slip something into my drink at the cabin to make me appear unstable on Haley's cameras. Brett's tough guy facade crumbled when he learned the weapons charges alone could put him away for years. The gun he'd brought to the restaurant was unregistered, and he was already on probation for a bar fight the previous year. He immediately offered to testify against everyone else in exchange for leniency. My parents held out the longest, maintaining their innocence until prosecutors showed them the paper trail. Every document they'd signed, every meeting with the corrupt doctor, every cash withdrawal that coincided with payments to Vance and Troy. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, brought in by Nathan's contacts, found offshore accounts they'd set up to hide the stolen inheritance once they had control. But it was Dr. Morrison who truly sang like a canary. Facing the loss of his medical license and serious jail time, he detailed every meeting, every payment, every fraudulent document he'd prepared. He'd done this before, he admitted, for 3 other families seeking to gain control of relatives' assets. His testimony led to a wider investigation that would eventually bring down an entire ring of professionals who specialized in inheritance fraud. The trial was set for 6 months out, but the media circus began immediately. Haley's footage seized as evidence was leaked and went viral. The public watched in horror as my family planned my destruction while smiling for the cameras. The court of public opinion rendered its verdict long before any jury would. I hired the best lawyers money could buy, not for vengeance, but for protection. While my family fought among themselves, I focused on securing restraining orders and ensuring they could never come near me again. The inheritance they'd destroyed our family to steal was used to build an ironclad legal wall between us. The surprise came when the twins reached out through their court-appointed advocate. Haley's daughters, 16-year-old Emma and Sophia, wanted to testify. They'd been horrified by their mother's plan and had secretly recorded conversations where Haley coached them on how to impersonate me if needed. She told us it was just acting, Emma said in her deposition, her young face drawn with guilt. Like a reality show. But then she showed us the drugs she had, the ones that would make Aunt Iris confused. We knew it was wrong. The girls had been living with their father since Haley's arrest, and I made sure they had access to therapy and support. They were victims too, children used as pawns in their mother's schemes. I set up education trusts for them, ensuring they'd have the opportunities their mother had tried to steal from everyone. As the trial date approached, the plea deals started rolling in. Brett was first agreeing to testify in exchange for 3 years instead of 10. His testimony was devastating, detailing planning sessions where they'd discussed everything from drugging me to staging my suicide if I refused to cooperate. Jade said if Iris wouldn't sign willingly, we'd make sure she couldn't tell anyone what happened. He said on the stand, avoiding my eyes. She had it all planned out. Make it look like Iris had a breakdown and hurt herself. Haley would have footage of Iris acting erratic, and we'd all be the grieving family who tried so hard to help her. My parents' health suddenly and conveniently deteriorated as their trial date approached. My mother developed heart palpitations that required monitoring, while my father's diabetes became dangerously unstable. Their lawyers pushed for house arrest instead of jail time, citing their age and medical conditions. But the judge, a no-nonsense woman named Amara Washington, who'd seen every trick in the book, wasn't buying it. The defendants showed no concern for their daughter's health when they plotted to have her kidnapped and potentially drugged, she said. They can receive medical care in custody like any other prisoner. Jade held out until the very end, maintaining her innocence, even as the evidence mounted. Her lawyer tried to argue that she'd been driven to desperation by financial pressures and mental health issues of her own. But when Vance and Troy testified about her specific instructions to do whatever it takes to break her, even that defense crumbled. The verdicts came down like dominoes. Jade guilty on all counts, sentenced to 8 years. Brett guilty 3 years as agreed. My parents guilty of conspiracy and fraud, 2 years each with 3 years probation. Haley guilty of conspiracy and attempting to profit from a crime, 18 months and loss of custody of the twins. Dr. Morrison lost his medical license in all 50 states and served 5 years. His testimony led to the arrest of 6 other doctors and 4 lawyers who'd participated in similar schemes. The investigation revealed a nationwide network of professionals who helped families steal inheritances through fraudulent mental health claims. Vance and Troy, the hired muscle, got 4 years each for conspiracy and attempted kidnapping. They seemed almost relieved to be going to prison away from the family drama that had consumed them. As the sentences were read, I sat in the courtroom feeling nothing but emptiness. These people who shared my blood had been willing to destroy me for money. They'd planned not just to steal from me, but to erase me, to make me disappear, or appear so crazy that no one would believe me. The money from Grandma Rose's estate, the millions they'd torn our family apart, trying to steal much of it, went to legal fees and restitution to other victims of the inheritance fraud ring. I donated a large portion to mental health organizations, specifically those that helped protect vulnerable adults from financial exploitation by family members. I kept enough to live comfortably and to ensure the twins had educational opportunities, but the bulk of it went to fighting the very crime my family had tried to commit. Grandma Rose would have appreciated the irony. She'd always said that money revealed character, and she'd been proven right in the worst possible way. 6 months after the trials ended, I stood in the same spot in the Mojave Desert where my family had abandoned me. The temperature was mild this time, a pleasant 75 degrees in the early spring morning. Dale's gas station looked exactly the same, frozen in time like a roadside museum of the worst day of my life. Dale himself was behind the counter, older and grayer, but still reading his magazines. He looked up when I walked in, recognition dawning slowly. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "Iris Patterson. Heard about the trials? Your family got what was coming to them." "They got justice," I corrected. "I'm not sure anyone got what they wanted." I'd come back as part of my therapy, facing the place where everything had fallen apart. Dr. Sarah Kim, my therapist, had suggested it might help with closure. "Sometimes we need to return to the site of our trauma to realize we've moved beyond it," she'd said. I bought a bottle of water from Dale, the same brand I desperately wanted that day 2 years ago when I'd had no money and no hope. This time I had both, plus something more valuable: perspective. "You know," Dale said, counting out my change, "I felt bad about taking your money that day. But you seemed so desperate, and your sister was very convincing about you being sick. You did what you thought was right with the information you had," I said. "And you gave me that footage. Without it, I might not have been able to prove what they were planning." "Still," he pushed the change back across the counter. "Consider it a very late apology." I left the money on the counter anyway and walked back outside. A car was waiting, but not an RV full of family. Maria and Diego had driven me here, understanding that I needed to make this journey, but refusing to let me make it alone. "You okay?" Maria asked as I slid into the back seat. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "I'm good." The drive back to San Diego was quiet. We'd become family in every way that mattered, these people who'd stood by me when my blood relations had tried to destroy me. Maria had become the mother I'd always wanted, supportive without being controlling, loving without conditions. Diego was the protective brother. Brett had never been someone who had my back without expecting anything in return. Selena had become my business partner in a nonprofit we'd founded called Family Fraud Prevention Initiative. We provided legal resources for people facing financial exploitation by family members, a crime more common than most people realized. The twins, Emma and Sophia, volunteered with us during school breaks, turning their trauma into purpose. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd found my true family only after losing my biological one. These relationships, built on choice rather than obligation, were stronger than any blood tie had ever been. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan, who'd become a close friend and advisor. "Dinner tonight at Rosario's. The whole gang will be there." Rosario's had become our place. The sight of my family's downfall transformed into a symbol of my new life. Diego had even named a dish after me, the Iris Special, a combination plate that was, in his words, beautiful, complex, and stronger than it looks. That night, sitting at the same table where my family had tried to break me, I was surrounded by the people who'd helped me rebuild. Nathan regaled us with stories from his FBI days. Maria fussed over everyone's food. Diego argued sports with his staff, and Selena planned our next legal aid clinic. "You know what I've learned," I said, raising my glass of wine. "Family isn't about DNA. It's about who shows up when you need them, who believes you when the world says you're crazy, who stands with you when standing with you is dangerous." To chosen family, Maria toasted, and we all raised our glasses. To chosen family, we echoed. Later, as I drove home to my small beach cottage in La Jolla, I thought about forgiveness. People often asked if I'd forgiven my family for what they'd done. The answer was complicated. I'd forgiven them in the sense that I no longer carried anger or hatred. Those emotions were too heavy, too toxic to hold on to. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean allowing them back into my life or pretending the betrayal hadn't happened. Some bridges once burned couldn't be rebuilt. Some wounds, while healed, left permanent scars. I'd received letters from prison. Jades were manipulative, even from behind bars, still trying to guilt me into helping her. Bretts were angry, blaming me for his circumstances. My parents were perhaps the saddest, filled with self-pity and requests for commissary money. I read them all once, then gave them to my lawyer to file away. I never responded. The hardest part of healing was accepting that the family I'd wanted, the loving, supportive clan I'd imagined we could be, had never existed. I'd been mourning a fantasy, grieving people who were never real. The real versions, the ones who'd planned my destruction over coffee and laughter, those people I could let go of without regret. My grandmother's house in Phoenix had been sold, the money distributed to various charities. I kept only one thing, a photo of her and me at my college graduation, her proud smile reminding me why she'd tried to protect me. She'd seen what I'd been, too hopeful to see that the rest of the family viewed me not as a person, but as an obstacle to their desires. "You're too good for them, Iris," she'd told me once. "Too kind, too trusting. They'll eat you alive if you let them." I'd thought she was being dramatic, maybe even a little paranoid in her old age. Turns out she was just prescient. Now, 2 years later, I lived a quiet life by the ocean. I dated occasionally, though trust came slowly. I had my work with the nonprofit My Chosen Family, and a therapist who helped me navigate the complex PTSD that came from being betrayed by everyone who was supposed to love me unconditionally. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered what my family was doing. Were they thinking of me in their cells? Did they regret what they'd done? Or did they only regret getting caught? Did they ever understand that if they'd just asked, if they'd just been honest about their struggles, I would have helped them? But those thoughts came less frequently now. Mostly, I focused on the present and the future. On the people we helped through the nonprofit, families torn apart by greed who needed support and legal protection. On the life I'd built from the ashes of the one that had been burned down. The desert had been meant to break me. Instead, it had revealed who I really was, and who truly stood with me. My family thought leaving me stranded would destroy me, but sometimes being abandoned by the wrong people is the only way to be found by the right ones. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone lit up with messages from My Chosen Family. Jokes from Diego, legal questions from Selena, a funny video from the twins, a check-in from Nathan, and a heart emoji from Maria. These simple connections, freely given and gratefully received, were worth more than all the money my biological family had tried to steal. They'd thought it would be funny to leave me stranded in the desert to see if I could survive on my own. Turns out I could do more than survive. I could thrive. And I could do it surrounded by people who loved me, not for what I could give them, but for who I was. The golden child had found her real gold, relationships that couldn't be stolen. Love that couldn't be forged, and a family that chose to stand by her when standing against her would have been easier. And that was worth more than any inheritance. What would you do if your own family betrayed you for money? Have you ever had to cut toxic relatives out of your life to protect yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of survival and triumph. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Thank you for watching, and remember, your worth isn't determined by those who try to tear you down, but by your ability to rise above their attempts. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.